ask anybody's question but yours. You're an idiot and really a disloyal person.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Disloyal Idiots podcast. Joining me, Christian Guzman, is Steve Heller and Andy Parker, all in various states of what happened this weekend and what is still happening in Syracuse Orange areas of the world.
All of them.
Gentlemen, how are we doing today? Yeah.
Wonderful here, Christian. How about you?
Doing pretty good. I think a lot of people will expect that it was a weird game to digest between many turnovers, penalties, and then Syracuse actually looking somewhat good, question mark, against a college football playoff team from last year. Andy Pregler is joining us from his New York home, but was in Atlanta and probably enjoyed a libation or two down there. Andy, how was it in Atlanta?
I just want to let everybody know that the fact that you can get a tall boy like beer for $11 in an NFL stadium, and it is in Atlanta, that is about as cheap as I've ever seen beer when someone is trying to make money off of the beer. It was very dangerous, especially considering that we made some Syracuse friends down there. In general, I think that we can talk a little bit about the things outside of the game as well, because I have thoughts on the crowd support or lack thereof in some regards. But it was a good time. It was a road trip worth doing. Shout out to, as always, Julie Wallace and the auto team who made sure that I got to meet up with the Big Orange Ball at the night before event that happened. And just from the looks and the photos and the way that Mercedes-Benz was set up, the Syracuse tailgate seemed to go well enough. So if you did make it down there, and I didn't get to say hi to you, apologies, but also want to hear from you and hear how your Atlanta-Syracuse experience was, because I definitely can say, and I think this was probably pretty clear from the TV, that was a Tennessee home game.
Yeah,
really?
It definitely sounded like it. I was listening to it on Sirius. I went back and was able to watch the first half. I only listened to the second half. But that was very apparent from at least the way they had it mic'd for radio, was that it was significantly more the shittier shade of orange in the house.
The real question is, and this is going to be a weird question for people who don't know, Andy, do they still have in Mercedes-Benz? Do they hold on for even for non-Falcons events the concession pricing model that
Yes.
Atlanta's famous for? Great.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So that was like the thing, is that look, part of the reason why I did not participate in the Syracuse pregame tailgate and wanted to go to this game was because from an affordability aspect, this is probably one of the cheapest, if not the outright cheapest, big stadium bowl games that you can go to. I've been lucky enough to go as a fan to the Camping World Bowl. I've been at a few of these big games that Syracuse has done at MetLife in the past. This, by far and away, was the cheapest experience. Just when you consider in the Airbnbs in Atlanta are fairly cheap. The tickets in the lower end zone were fairly cheap. The concession stands, I was able to get a full meal of hot dogs and a beer for under $15. That is unheard of. But it's great if you're hey, I wanted to bring some kids here, which honestly, there were a lot more families in the Syracuse section than in the Tennessee section for sure. But it was definitely a thing where I think if you're looking at wins off the field in the Syracuse section, it was a lot of young alumni who had traveled from larger areas in the Southeast and done the quick flight and gotten into the game. There were some families who were in the driving area to Atlanta. Lots of player families and extended families,
Nice.
multiple NIL jerseys with players' names on them, taking up multiple rows for one family kind of thing. So when you start looking at who started the game at linebacker, when you start looking at which players were given some playing time, I don't necessarily want a conspiracy theory any of this, because I think as we're going to talk about, some of those guys were clearly the best option to play, even if we weren't expecting it. This was a massive touchstone event that the football team and the athletic department used to meet with families who were in that general Atlanta area.
I do
And
want to kind of, yeah. Go ahead, Steve. First, yeah.
No, I was going to say that's like an added bonus of these neutral site games when you can use them to your advantage. Like it's one in the past we've played a bunch of quote unquote neutral site games that usually end up being an away game for Syracuse, and the administration hasn't utilized them in the way they should. And from what you're saying, it seems like that is not the case with this one. That it was turned to the advantage of Syracuse, whether or not what we saw on the field was, a W or not, which in this case it was not. Ultimately, for the program, if we can get that win, we can get that win.
Yeah, exactly. And Christian, I think like one of the interesting things, obviously, was because I was there, I was really relying on you all to like in the Slack, like post the messages and post the like what is the depth chart here, like what's happening here, and like when that depth chart came out, like there was palpable excitement and surprise from all the Syracuse people. Like I have it up on my phone. Everybody's like, "Oh wait, you have the depth chart. Like what's going on? What's happening?" It's like we're starting a true freshman at linebacker here today, guys. Like there's a few things here that we're a little bit surprised by.
Yeah,
right. That's not an Atlanta move. That's because he's Canadian. He's Quebecois, so we moved farther away from his home to start him.
Well, to be fair, I believe Antoine Delorier, for those who don't know, you know him because you saw the jacked picture that ESPN and SportsCenter posted on their social channels that went viral. He was one of Syracuse's starting linebackers, and while he was rotated out a lot, still had a big majority of those snaps. He played 35 snaps, which is in the top half of the amount of snaps played for a defensive player for Syracuse. So it's significant. We'll see some more weird linebacker things in the next coming weeks, which is we'll get to in a bit as well.
Yes, we will.
Indeed. Because we are the podcast that we are, as much as I would love to talk about Delorier, and we'll get to him even more, we have Steve here for a reason. And
hi. Wait, is it Steve is old or is it offensive line? Because those are the two reasons.
It is the latter. Every single offensive lineman that played for Syracuse played the entire game. There was no change in the starting line from when it first stepped onto the field to when it last stepped off the field. And that was Travion Mack at left tackle, TJ Ferguson at left guard, Austin Collins at center, Joe Cruz at right guard, and Demetrius Weatherspoon at right tackle. And it looked shaky and bad at first, but definitely went better, question mark, towards the end of the game.
Yeah. No, like I said, I didn't see the second half, and I need to get that at some point when I have a spare second, which is hardly ever, under my belt to give you a good gauge on it. But from what I saw in the first half, after those first couple of drives where Pregler, you actually pointed out in the chat quite well, Tennessee was throwing, and Tennessee's front seven is a very, very good, probably the best front seven we're going to see this year, like hands down. And that's even with a couple of injuries they had. They are a very good SEC caliber front seven that doesn't really have a weak link in it. Syracuse, when they started the game, had some serious issues picking up some stunts. They had a lot of unique twists, unique, crosses, delayed blitzes that really threw us for a loop. After the first couple of series, they really settled down and really started picking stuff up. And I think watching it too, sometimes I wonder if Angeli was actually picking up the reads that he was supposed to be picking up. A couple of those delayed blitzes were not on the offensive line. You can't leave your man to pick someone else up, and everybody was marked. That's on the QB to get the ball out. I don't know. I have not seen the PFF grades Usually I wait till I see the whole game to look at them. So I have no idea what the offensive line graded out at. But in general, it seemed like if you'd have graded it on 2 halves or even 3 quarters, or 4 quarters, graded on 3 quarters. If you graded it on 4 quarters, at least the jump between the first and second quarter seemed like it was a significant improvement. And this is a unit that's a bunch of guys that have come in and have had effectively a camp to play together. So why not?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things when you're at the game and you're not at the high level where you can kind of see everything happening.
Yep.
I prefer to be in the end zones because you just have the straight on view. And so when I am on the backside of the Syracuse offense, that's really when I was able to make that call out in the Slack of being like, man, they're stunting like crazy. Like you can just see it happening and you can see the struggles and the frustration the offensive line was having dealing with that, which is great. And
welcome to my sicko world, Andy. Welcome.
But the other thing that's also really apparent is that like when you take a couple of snaps, like I'm still not at a place where I can kind of observe the whole play without having the ability to like rewind it on a VCR of some sort. But when you take the plays to kind of look at where the receivers were downfield and you're quickly scanning, one of the things that I think that Tennessee did really well in this game that made Angeli his life difficult was that they did a great job of preventing him from really moving the pocket either left or right. Like there was next to no design bootlegs, but even on plays where things were clearly not working, there wasn't a whole lot of ability for him to have an easy way out of the pocket left or right. Like Tennessee did a great job creating a collapsed pocket, forcing him to stand still, and then from there what you saw was the windows that he had were tight. And I'm not saying that
wonderful concept.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to say that like the looks weren't there. What I am going to say is that the look was there for like you have 1 in 100 chance to get this off right perfectly. Otherwise, there's going to be a risk. And my concern with Angeli, which I think was the concern that everybody had coming into this, he seems to be incredibly risk averse. Like even in that Notre Dame game, if it wasn't a big play with his legs, like it was the check down every time. And Tennessee kind of had scouted that and was basically daring him like, we want you to try to push the ball down the field. We want you to try to make the deep throw over the middle. We want you to try to like take the harder or medium throw and we'll give up the burn, but we're not going to let you have any of this easy stuff. And I think that that's really where you saw the offense sputter so much and what made the offensive line maybe look a little bit worse than they actually were, because once you start getting that easy stuff going, it's a lot. The line looks a lot better.
So that's going to be another huge thing moving forward, and we'll get 2 weeks of warm up for this. But like you said, they brought pressure on the outside. I remember seeing at least 2 designed bootlegs that Angeli had to pull up and was not able to actually, complete. One he made a play on, the other ended up being a wonky, whatever the hell it was. But like they contained the pocket. And to Syracuse's offensive line credit, again, after the first couple of drives, they were able to sustain a pocket. And there wasn't a lot of collapsing unless it was either individual, like, okay, somebody actually just got stood up. That happens.
Yeah.
There was no real, like, systemic, holy shit, this is, like, we've seen in the past. I'm looking at my past year's offensive lines here. There are some of those that I can point to that were like, holy shit, they do not know how to play together. They don't know who's next to them at this point. This did not seem like that, which is a good thing. Angeli against a front seven that isn't going to be this good, and against linebackers that aren't this caliber, those checkdowns will be open. Those checkdowns will be more fruitful. It won't be, the 2 or 3 yard checkdown. It'll be something where they were able to get some space, maybe create a turn up field and get 5 or 7 out of those 2 or 3 yard gains that we were getting this week. That talent gap to start, especially to start the season, is a very, very difficult thing to overcome. And again, we saw them improve as the game went on. I'm going to go on a limb and say if we had this Tennessee game after the UConn game or after the Colgate game, that this would have been a very different game. Like,
Yeah.
we would have seen a lot. We wouldn't have had the yips that we had on those first couple of drives. Like, yes, we sustained a little the first drive. Turnovers, stupid things happened, penalties, whatever. Like, Demetrius Samuel on that pass interference, like, it's 100% a yips thing. Like, you don't high point that guy and like push off his shoulders if you're not like, oh shit, what do? I got to get the ball. Like that.
Well, and it's also
that's the 17-year-old freshman, but you could see physically he was able to hold up, and Fran talked about that after the game. So like, there's if we saw this game next week, I wonder what it would have looked like.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you can kind of take a look, broad strokes across college football this week, if you look at the games where even the best offenses, like a Texas, or we project a Clemson offense or an LSU offense, going up against a good defense, like the defense is won week 1 this week. Like, right. That's the story of the elite defenses this week, is that they were able to perform at a very high level. And they were able to really limit scoring because every offense is going through this. Every offense is dealing with a ton of transfers. Every offense is dealing with some new systems and some new coordinators come in. There's very little coherence across the board in this era, and that's going to make these big week 1 games a little bit more defensive intrinsically. I think one of the other things, like as we kind of stick with the offense and stick with the offensive line side of things, one of the other areas, not necessarily of concern, but like a little bit of surprise for me, was the commitment to the run game. Again, I think it's because you don't have the Kyle McCord easy button back there, like when you're chasing a game, to just let McCord throw it 50 times, like we saw some games last season. The commitment to the running game was there. I thought Nixon was a fairly solid change of pace back, but there were a couple times, again, he made the offensive line look kind of bad by just going into the prescribed gap when there was Tennessee had clearly read the play pre-snap, and there was space if he would bounce into another gap or bounce it outside. Yassine Willis seemed to have a little bit more of that. I'm going to take what the line gives me, and I'm going to make sure that this is 3 or 4 yards, even if the play is quote unquote stuffed. I think that is something I'm actually pretty confident about moving forward, because let's just play this out and say worst case scenario, no, our offensive line is actually bad and Tennessee gets outed over the next 4 or 5 weeks as their defense actually not being that great. I don't think that's true, but like, let's just play this right. Worst case scenario. Let's just play this worst case scenario out. Yeah, worst case scenario here, our offensive line is bad. I think we do have a running game that at least allows us to still be somewhat unpredictable, to still be somewhat creative, because one of the good things that we did see, I know there were a few procedural penalties, and I'm going to be completely honest, I couldn't tell if all of them or some of them were fair or whatnot, because that is one thing that you don't really in person, like pre-snap, you're doing a lot more than watching all the procedural things. There was a lot of motion, and early in that game, unfortunately, Syracuse wasn't able to capitalize off of it. Tennessee was not prepared for the packages and the looks that Jeff Nixon was cooking up with a lot of those plays. Right. And that bodes really well to me if you have that element from the game plan, from the pass design, and you have a running attack that can, even in a bad game, still get 3-4 yards a carry with your feature back. There's some optimism on the offensive side of the ball for me with those two things.
Even with a Thundercat in there.
Yeah. To be fair, Steve, as well for you, every single offensive lineman graded above the Mendoza line.
There you go. When is the last time we have been able
That's
to
a great
say
point. This is a fantastic point.
Like, legitimately, when is the last time we could say that? It's been a while.
Demetrius
outside
Weatherspoon
of, you know...
Yeah, and Demetrius Weatherspoon gets the highest offensive grade in total at a 76.4.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that tracks. So.
Yeah. I thought, again, I didn't think the offensive line was the problem. That's not the trench work that I came away from the game concerned about. Yeah.
To put a bow on it,
we
just
we
like
go into the vegetables now.
well, just to put a bow on offensively, I think that still needs to be like hammered out. Is that the big takeaway from this game as well is, as we mentioned, this is a Tennessee defense who, all things considered, is going to be one of the best front sevens, not just in the SEC, but probably in the nation as well, with
Yeah.
multiple fantastic players up front. And because of that, the fact that most people probably didn't think Syracuse would come away with 26 points in general.
None of us did.
Yeah, exactly. That's a fantastic result offensively. And I don't think offensively there's much wrong with this team.
Right.
And there's definitely things to fix. Mental mistakes, penalties, maybe some mental lapses on the line, which allowed some of those sacks. But like one of the other things, like Angeli was still getting the ball out quick. I think Kevin calculated this or had it on PFF. The ball, his average release time was compared to Kyle McCord last year, only 0.08 of a second slower.
Right.
So like,
that's
I don't
the other
think
thing too is that's 26 points with us getting stood up on our 4 going in at the end of the game.
Yes.
Too. Like it's not like that's the thing is going into that last 4 minutes of the game, it's a 11-point game, right?
Yeah.
And were it not for, us not succeeding on the, fourth and goal from the 4, like we score there, they don't put up another, like that. It ends up being a single possession or 2-possession game. Like it's not what the score indicated, which we were talking pre-pod about it, Christian, and I feel like this is definitively one of those where if you just saw the numbers and you just saw Syracuse, got boat raced by 20 by Tennessee, it's very different than if you watch that fourth quarter.
I mean, Syracuse. Yeah, I was gonna say Syracuse was covering the game for most of the way, and like you count a 2-point conversion here, a 2-point conversion there, and like all of a sudden, like this game is the game's getting eyes watched as like, ooh, potential upset by Syracuse here because they're within 10 points of Tennessee going into the fourth. Like,
yeah,
I even though this game wasn't, I don't think anybody here is trying to say this was the best effort Syracuse had. Like, I think this is probably a B- effort by the Orange holistically.
And nobody is saying Syracuse deserved to win this game either.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Tennessee was definitively the better team, but I think what we're trying to say is that Syracuse had some bright points and a lot. It probably looked better than if you didn't watch the game and just saw this score. They looked better than what that indicated, with still a bunch of questions.
Now, to your point, Steve, I think it's time for some vegetables. And Christian, how the other side of the ball was not good.
Remember what I said last week?
You said a lot of things.
You said a lot of things.
Yeah, about one of the things about what was needed in order for what you wanted to see in terms of like, yeah, we all thought Syracuse was going to lose this game, and yes, they did. But what did you want to see that would give you hope? And yes, the hope part was this week. Hey, your offense looks pretty good. It feels like you clean up a couple of things. Your offense can hang with any team in the nation. Defensively, the one thing I said was tackle him, you fuck. And holy moly.
Now, the one thing I know is that so tackle him is a there's multiple facets to it, because our tackling on PFF apparently looked like I saw it in the Slack, like our tackling actually didn't look that bad on PFF. However, if you could isolate it to open field tackling, I think that may be a different grade.
And that's what Fran definitely said as well, is that like tackling, ironically, is the best defensive grade. It's a 71.6.
Right.
But again, open field tackling was not great. And I think Fran mentioned in his press conference, it's like guys have to stop going for the legs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
stand them up.
at some, like I think the exact quote was at some point you have to go face mask to face mask.
Yeah. Stand them up and go for it. Like you will have help coming somewhere. Don't go for the big play. Go for the smart play. I don't know.
It
Call me crazy.
is. It's one of these things where watching the game, there were two factors at play that I think impacted open field tackling. One, I'm going to give some credit to Tennessee here, and this is the Josh Heupel offense that I think if you follow college football, you know that he's really innovative. He's a great offensive mind. He's really shifted his strategy from throw the receivers on the sideline and run fast to a more RPO heavy, create angles, create tunnels that make it really hard to get a good open field tackle, and then let my athletes like take advantage of these opportunities that are a lot more low risk than a deep ball in cover two.
But you're telling me my four verts offense
So
on freshman difficulty on EA College Football 26 doesn't work in real football?
well, the thing was that Tennessee made it work in real life for like one season, and we all were like, "Oh my gosh, this might actually be a thing." And then I think Nico Amialava broke Heupel a little bit, and now with Christian Aguilar, you kind of get the best of both worlds here, where you get a quarterback who does have that deep ball, as we saw, but is also able to throw a tight RPO read and get into those tunnels. So I do want to give some credit to Tennessee here. I think some of that bad open field tackling is by design, and it's just a situation where, going back to what Steve said at the beginning here, they have amazing athletes, and in those situations you just need the athlete to win the one-on-one matchup. And when you're starting a bunch of sophomores and freshmen, that's asking a lot. The part that did concern me, though, was in past years, I think we've seen it's been a bunch of like players trying to arm tackle and just like being pretty lazy with how they try to open field tackle. In this one, there was just a lot of going for that big play, but then because you went for the big play, you end up with the really bad like fundamentals across the board. And that was being done not by freshmen and sophomores, but those are being done by juniors and seniors who are supposed to be leading this unit by example. And I don't mean to pick on the kid, but like the one that just really infuriated me was because it was right in front of me as well, was the touchdown run where McDonald has the running back 100% squared up with the right angle, is in the right spot to like make that tackle and make that stop and force, I think it would have forced a third or fourth down. And instead he tries to go for the big hit, and the Tennessee running back is just able to get lower, get the leverage, and shake him completely off. And it's like, I understand you get excited, you get juiced for that moment, you get really excited about having that one-on-one against Tennessee. You got to bring the guy down. Like you weren't even standing in the end zone, man. You were still before the end zone, and he just completely pushes you in. And like that to me was kind of like the moment where it's like, oh boy, even if we do catch up, I don't know if we can stop them, because this is a problem at all three levels.
And I tweeted this right after the first drive. Like, the defense didn't look bad on the first drive, but Tennessee passed it like 8 times and ran it twice. And the 2 times they ran it, I was like, oh, this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Yeah.
like, if Samuel doesn't have that penalty, I think they can stop Tennessee without them scoring, because they decided to go more pass heavy.
Right.
The 2 times they ran it on that very first drive, you could immediately see that there was going to be a problem run defense-wise. And I think that's also ultimately where Syracuse also fell down short. It's just that run defense-wise, it did not look good. When you talked to Andy about how Yacine, found the way to take what the offensive line was giving him and still get 3 or 4 yards. It felt like that was natural for Tennessee, just in general throughout the game. And that is a Syracuse stereotype, another one of the Syracuse stereotypes that just hasn't left the orange at all. So at some point, and Fran wants to emphasize that of being physical, hitting guys. At some point, they're going to have to, up that physicality to the next degree, if there is another degree to up it to. Because you have to stop allowing easy fall forward yards on rushing, and allowing the opposing offense to feel comfortable in manageable situations because they can get a couple extra yards in the rush, whether it be through gap management issues or just tackling issues, which is what really sunk Syracuse. The run defense, I just wasn't great either.
Tennessee ran for 6.2 yards per carry.
I'm not a doctor. That's not great though.
No, not at all.
I mean, well, here's the thing that like really makes me worried is like part of that average is inflated due to the Aguilar long runs that were in there.
No.
If you take out the Aguilar plays,
if you take out
yeah,
the Aguilar plays, that increases it to 7.7 and 7.5 for Star Thomas and Deshaun Bishop. Insanity.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Is that it's like, yeah, it was worse than the stats indicated, which is not where you ever want your rushing stats to be.
Right.
And again, Steve, like this is something where you find yourself watching it like we were just getting moved. Like their offensive line was doing a great job of just moving and placing guys so that even when Syracuse was making contact with a running back, it was 2 or 3 yards off the line of scrimmage. And that's just not, you're not going to win very many games if a team can very easily move the ball down the field by just handing the ball off.
Yeah, I won't disagree there.
Quick,
that said,
quick sidebar quick sidebar to let everyone know that you know how reporters get flip cards of the depth chart for football and things like that in the press box. Bill Belichick has not done that service.
God,
fantastic. October 31st is going to be great.
Halloween in the
man, I hope we beat.
I need to find a way to get there. My problem is I have an 8-year-old who also needs to trick or treat. So I'm going to
trick or treat at the Dome.
Just bring him around here and then bring him up to the parking lot.
Honestly, not
a horrible idea.
Who says that you can't
Syracuse,
trick or treat with
come on, man. We're giving you free marketing ideas.
Bring your kid to the Dome Day.
Exactly.
Just
oh my gosh.
Tennessee's offensive line, the literal smallest person on it is 295 pounds and is a true freshman. Syracuse's defensive tackles are not that big in any way, shape, or form. So
yeah, this was one of those games. This is an area of concern that I just have in general with how we're going to perform with some of the teams on our schedule. I think that there's at least 3 more opponents that we have where that size difference is going to be consistent to what we saw against Tennessee. So we better find a way to neutralize that. We've got a few weeks before the first one of those. We have to travel down to Clemson. So let's get to work on that. I don't have any real answers here because again, I didn't see a ton on the defensive line that it feels like, oh hey, this is a bud of something that we can grow into a flower and a positive. I think that that's not necessarily a burn the film game, but it's definitely not a good film sesh when Robinson and the rest of the coaches meet with the guys to say like, all right, let's review this tape.
Right.
I will say, based on Fran's comments today in his weekly press conference, I think it was a burn to film game.
Fair.
Yeah, because he flat out said like.
So I'm kind of curious about that, Christian. Like talk.
Like that, he flat out said it. The film sucked. That's what he said, and so and Fran's always been a guy of not do I want to pass. Let's live on winning today.
Right.
And so that's what it feels like it's going to happen. But you could tell, like, he was really fidgety during his press conference today. And, like, he just flat out said, like, I'm still mad. Like, he hates losing. You know he hates losing. You could tell he was still angry and mad of losing that game. And, and he also flat out admits that, like, yeah, just Tennessee just beat us. But you could still tell that he was mad. and angry about that game, and disappointed about losing that game as well.
Well, I mean, when you look at the numbers, like 377 yards of total offense, like a good amount of possession. Fourth down efficiency was stupid, but like there were enough things to take away from that where, and the number of points on the board that Syracuse offense did a good thing, but then they also on the flip side almost gave up 500 yards of offense, and it didn't look nearly as good on that end. 7 of 12 for Tennessee on third down. Like, come on.
That was not good.
Yeah. So, there's plenty of things to work on and probably plenty of changes to come, as we've heard from Fran in that presser, right, Christian?
Yeah, we might as well get right into it. Our new starting Sam linebacker is Jamie Tremble. And I doubt a lot of people realized that was going to be a move. Tremble did play, I think it was like 12 or 13 snaps, 18 snaps on defense during the Tennessee game. And the way Fran just sounds like, it just sounds like, hey, if you're a good enough athlete, you'll get in. So and Tremble's a pretty good athlete. He ran a 2.2. He ran a 22 miles per hour on a GPS, and also jumps 39 inches vertically.
Right.
Pretty good athlete.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's hit the numbers that we need him to. I mean, I can't fault him in any way, shape, or form for putting the best players on the field. Like, if that's what's going to give you the best chance to win, do it. And it seems like Fran is not someone who's unwilling to do so, no matter how unconventional it seems. So he's already playing a true freshman who's just 17 years old at corner. Why not just start, working people wherever they're going to see the field? That seemed to be, from the quotes that I saw, what he basically said is Tremble is too good to not have out there, and he's going to be out there on defense now instead of offense, or including offense.
Yeah, and I know the one for you, Steve, that's very, very happy for you, is that once it gets in there, Byron Washington, and once he loses some weight, Byron Washington will, jump into the offensive line rotation. And it feels like there are quite a few guys that Fran wants to get into the offensive line more.
Yep.
The 5 offensive line starters played all 90 snaps. But at the same time, it feels like Fran wants to get more guys into that offensive line.
Yeah, and what it seems like, just anecdotally may happen would be, as you mentioned, if Washington gets down to where he needs to be, he slots in that right guard spot. Cruz turns into the 6 man that can rotate between both guards, because primarily we've seen him work at left guard prior. Like that would give, especially a larger than average human being like Byron Washington, the ability to get off the field and get a blow every once in a while. I think that puts us in a good situation.
For those just listening, unfortunately, Andy's app crashed, so he will not be joining us for the rest of the pod. But it gives us a little bit more time to talk also, just about the developments that Syracuse are going to bring for this UConn game. On the depth chart, Washington was listed under TJ Ferguson at left guard. And it feels like, just like you said, Steve, that feels like one of the natural rotating out points. Maybe it's for Joe Cruz, but right now it was Ferguson first,
right.
At least where he was behind in the depth chart. What does it look like? Do you think it is Cruz first out, or is it Ferguson out?
Having not seen them enough, and also having no idea what Washington brings to the table, if he has a preference or plays better on one side or the other, I don't really know. But if he pushes a redshirt senior from Florida State out of the starting lineup, then we're doing very good things. Like, I guess if he pushes a redshirt junior out of the starting lineup, we're also doing good things. But like, there's also Zach Rice in the mix, who's another backup guard. And if Washington is coming in over all of these transfers and gaining a starting role, then I'm not going to complain. You know, if Dale Williams thinks that those guys are going to win us games more than the alternative, then you have to trust him at this point.
And for what it sounded like, the rotation, the France said he wanted to he thinks he's got 8 guys capable, and it feels like the other 2 that he said alongside Washington were Josh Miller and Akil Bertrand.
Right.
So it feels like that's your 8-man rotation. And again, like you said, Steve, that leaves out guys like Zach Rice and Cam Pringle, who we thought, might be guys who would be for sure starters in that rotation,
Right.
immediately.
Yeah, and Miller's got work. Like, he's listed as the backup center, but we know he's been working at guard for the past 2 years as well.
And he's got some experience at tackle, I believe, as well.
Yep. So, even if anywhere on the 2 deep, we can get a good amount of, I guess, confidence in a second tier, it's going to help us out. Even if it's to get 5 plays off here or there, or rotate through, or it also opens up if we have folks that are better in certain blocking schemes than others, or more run heavy or more pass heavy, that if we have to specialize a little, why not? Like, use the guys to the best of their ability, which is seemingly one of Fran's biggest mantras. So if they can find a way to do that on the line, I'm all for it.
So something we didn't get a chance to touch on with Andy too much, just because we were kind of going all over the place. Secondary wise for Syracuse, given a couple big plays, yes, but overall, again, wasn't necessarily the worst. And yes, it felt like Tennessee was picking on Samuel a bit.
I mean, if you have a 17-year-old freshman starting, you're going to pick on him.
Exactly. And yes, he was graded as one of the lower, players, but still, when you take a look at snaps wise, he plays the 3rd most snaps on the team on defense.
Right. And again, similar to what we've talked about, if we take that first quarter out of there and grade them, I wonder what that looks like.
Absolutely.
I don't know on PFF if there's a way to break it down by quarter.
No,
I don't believe there was. I've never found it. But if there was a way to take this game and remove the first quarter from it, I would be very curious what we look like.
Definitely. It feels like the entire team just got a bit more confidence.
Yeah.
As the game went on, which of course this goes along the mantra of shame you got to play Tennessee first in this game. And the other group that we really haven't touched on, mainly because we really haven't needed to, especially since with the guys they've trotted out there, it's pretty good. The wide receivers. It's a good wide receiver room.
It is. And Jonte Cook made some great catches. JRS did some very good things as well. And
the edge block that he had on one of the first Willis touchdown.
Yeah. Give me that stock block every day.
Yeah.
And all 3 of the starters looked great. I heard again, hearing the second half, heard Tyshawn Russell's name a good number of times in big moments.
Yes.
Like, he definitely came to play. There's talent there. Jonte Cook is as advertised, it seems.
Dude, he's good.
Yeah.
Your top 3 performers who are all graded in the 70s are Demetrius Witherspoon, Yassine Willis, and Jonte Cook. And for most people, you're like, yes, that tracks out.
Yeah. That's, there's a reason they're starting.
So, what do you take in for this UConn game is the real question now. Because it feels like, again, you've got confidence in the offense. Defense-wise, obviously still questions there. You assume that a lot of this UConn team is probably going to be similar to what you faced last year. And, it took a little bit into the second quarter in order for things to get going, but they got going eventually.
I
How
think that's one of your biggest focuses against UConn is to make sure that you don't sputter and make sure that you play a complete game. You know, you got the jitters out in the neutral site game in an NFL stadium against an SEC team. Like, you were able to use that to get the jitters out, to get the whoops out. Like, settle down and play from the first snap. And if they do that, this UConn game is going to look like the UConn game last year, where we're putting up 600 yards of offense. If they don't, then who knows? Like, UConn's not they're not a great team, but they're not a horrible team and could stick around for farther than we want them to, which is kind of what happened last year too. But
yeah.
I don't know. You know, it's there's too many different ways it can go, but I would like to see them, you know, come out from the opening whistle and just put the game to rest, which I feel like is probably what Fran wants them to do, which would allow him to vet some of the younger talent in the second half. So I don't know. It's a weird feel going from an SEC opponent to UConn and to not make this a trap game.
Yeah. It does have the makings of a trap game. Hopefully the tackling improves. That's kind of what everyone really wants to see. And
Right.
as long as
well,
that improves.
and again, though,
yeah.
like UConn wide receivers or UConn running backs catching something in the flat are going to, just by happenstance, are going to be a step down from what they saw this week.
What makes you say?
You know, it's science.
Indeed. And that's no disrespect to UConn, obviously.
No, not at all. But,
yeah.
like, they're not an SEC team that can bring in anybody they want to at any given point.
It should be interesting this coming week. It's going to be good to be back in the dome. Let's put it that way as well.
Absolutely. And with the nooner, if anyone is interested in kegs and eggs for the tailgate, feel free to swing by. It's always I will be serving up a nice breakfast to anyone who happens by the Harrison lot.
I may take you up on that, given
There you
the
go.
state of recent Syracuse media brunches for nooners. We have some time left on the pod, and that allows Steve and I to talk about our other favorite subject. Cuse
Which one
Med
is that?
Soccer.
Oh boy.
Did you see that game on Thursday?
I did not.
Let's just say Syracuse should have won that game.
Great. That's something new and original.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And boy, there's a lot of good chances for Syracuse there. Syracuse ends up winning today in men's soccer as well.
Yep.
1-0 over Yale. But they draw 1-1 against Penn State on Thursday. Rain plays a factor, I think, in this game because there are some beautiful free chances for Syracuse that are stopped by by some mishandling of the ball. Maybe rain plays a bit of factor there.
yep.
But there are two chances where Cuse is clear on goal, and just mishandled touches are befall them to go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say that's well, I don't want to say it, but I feel like that's almost a it's like it's consistent for MAC teams where there's games they should have won and just outplay the other team and just can't put the ball in the back of the net. And I think anyone who's watched the team long enough, like they realize that there's going to be some games where the offense just doesn't do it. And even if we have all the defensive talent, you know, you give up one goal, but you can't put anything in the net. It is what it is. In this case, yes, it was a 1-1 draw, but finding that second score it's been elusive over the years, outside of like one or two offensive mixes that have gotten us, you know, quite prolific scoring.
Yeah, and it feels like once again it's another case this year where the defense is very, very good. The offense is just not quite there maybe yet.
Yeah,
you still have some great players like creating offensive chances. Shaquille Ming creates offensive chances great. Chimere Omeze creates amazing offensive chances when they decide to move him up the field. But like, it's the finishing leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, I mean through 4 games they've given up 2 goals. That's fine.
That's what you
Well,
want.
Here we are at what 2-0-1, 1-0-1,
It's
2-0-1,
no 2-1 and 1.
2-1-1.
Mm-hmm.
Math is hard.
Math is indeed very hard.
So we're actually, what do we got? Friday?
I believe Friday's next. Yes.
Yep, Friday home 7 p.m. against Duquesne. So we'll see how that goes. In 2 weeks, we get to, well, actually, no, next week, the 13th. I was thinking that was 2 weeks away. So September 13th, next Saturday, we actually get number 4 Stanford to come into the Dome. Well, come into Syracuse Soccer Stadium.
Could you imagine?
Oh God. So yeah, things are going to get interesting because we follow that up with number 9 Duke. Yeah. Yep. Everything's fine.
Not really any great easy games on the schedule, especially you've got just a murderer's row of stretch at the end of the year. In terms of the ACC schedule, SMU, Pitt, North Carolina, and NC State, and you think, oh, you've got a non-conference game in there to soften the palate a little. No, it's Cornell.
Right. Who, while they're not in the top 25 right now, they're still considered they're a much improved from the doormat the Ivy used to be.
Yeah. Cornell was ranked preseason number 22 and only dropped out of the rankings due to the fact that they did not play in week 1 because Ivy League rules.
Well, minor details.
Exactly.
God, wow, that is bad.
Yeah, you just digest the end of that season
Yeah,
now.
like looking at that, I did another double take at that. It's like, no, that's bad. That's a bad
It's
end of the
very
season.
bad.
So they need to get some wins early and see if they can hold on.
Well, that'll be true for all the programs on the Hill right now, especially for football. And it feels like that's going to be the big case for football. Get some wins early and see if they can hang on.
Mm-hmm.
That starts with UConn this week. On Saturday, we'll have coverage from the Dome, and we'll come back next Sunday, hopefully with a functioning electronic device for Andy for him to join us for the full length of our episode.
Fair enough. No, and I think if nothing else, we'll have a better. I think this will give us a good gauge for where this team actually is.
Definitely, and again, it's as you mentioned earlier, it's going to be 2 good tune-up games essentially before the trip down to Death Valley to play Clemson.
Yeah, that's God. Every time I look at this schedule, it's just so stupid.
Can we borrow some players from LSU to scare Cade Klubnik?
I mean, your game after Clemson that you would think you would want like a palate cleanser after that is hosting Duke.
Mm-hmm. And for people who are just casual football fans, this is not the same Duke team that you're used to. That's slightly less than good.
Right. Yeah. No, it's going to be rough. I mean, they played Elon, but their offense was clicking. So,
I mean, Darian Menzel looks very good as usual.
Yeah, we'll see what they do against number 12 Illinois this week. So, but to make it more than 6-6, I believe that is one of the games that we have to win.
Absolutely.
So that's a bit of a litmus test there.
I think at this point, you've got to win every home game. I think at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, unless you snipe the one at Georgia Tech, you've got to win every home game.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, Georgia Tech didn't necessarily look the cleanest against Colorado.
Right, but
they did win, but they didn't look the cleanest against Colorado. Three first quarter. Was it 3 first quarter or 3 first half turnovers? One or the other. It was just not.
Yeah, either way,
it wasn't good.
Great.
Yeah. So we will see, but as usual, we'll be back hopefully at 8:00 next week on Sunday to recap what should hopefully be a win against UConn. But for now, this is the Disloyal Idiots podcast. I'm Christian de Guzman alongside Steve Hadler and a somewhere in the wind of internet loss, Andy Pregler. We'll be back hopefully again next week on Sunday. If you're watching along on Twitch or YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Give us a like, follow, a subscription, whatever it may be. And if you're listening on your podcast platform of choice, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like, rate, subscribe, leave a comment so that we can trick the algorithm into expanding the Ottoman Empire. It's not all doom and gloom for Syracuse football fans. Hang in there and just say go Orange with us.
Go Orange.